if m is less than n, we have to prove that s is less than t, and to prove that s is less than t, we have to do the things accordingly. We have to produce a function that maps t onto s, and at the same time we have to show that there is no function that maps s onto t. That's what we are going to do. So here is the solution. So in the solution we can take, note one more thing that note one particular thing about this definition, one set being smaller than another. We have not taken into account this situation where one of them is the empty set and another one is a non-empty set. Why? Because since we have defined things in terms of mapping, and for us there is no mapping when the sets involved, one of them or both of them are empty, so for us this is not defined. Okay, although we can see that the empty set has 0 elements, no elements at all, and a non-empty set has something, so we should have this. However, the definition does not cover this case. So that's why, since it's given that s and t are having m and n elements respectively, we can and we have to assume that none of them is 0. Each one of them is a positive integer, and because of that we can start our solution like this. Let S be the set S1, S2 up to Sn, and T be the set T1, T2, etc. to Tn. Some of these Si's may be equal to some Tj, we don't know, and in fact we don't have any need to know. That is, what I am saying is that S and T may not be disjoint, there may be some common element, but that's we are not bothered about that. We just have to produce an onto function from T to S. That is our first job. Okay, so define a mapping sigma from T to S by this formula. Ti sigma is equal to Si if I lies between 1 and m. Okay, this is easy to understand. If I lies between 1 and m, then Si makes sense because the suffix I in Si lies between 1 and n, so we can map Ti onto Si. Okay, and the image is Sm if I lies between m plus 1 and n. Okay, keep in mind that this condition is given to us, m is less than n. So that means after having m, we will have some integers till we get to n. So that will start from m plus 1 and then we will have n ultimately. So if I lies in that range, then my image of Ti under sigma is constantly Tm, Sm. Okay, so that you can see that we are not going outside of S. Whatever we are defining we are ultimately inside S itself. So sigma is a mapping from T to S. One more thing is that the elements Ti all depend on I, and for one I there is only one element. These are distinct n elements in the set capital T. So if I have chosen Ti, then for Ti I is unique. For this T element the suffix is 1 and it is not anything else. It cannot be 2 or 3, then we will get different elements. So because of this uniqueness, the definition of this mapping, which involves I, actually gives me a unique Si. For a given Ti, I is unique, and that's why Si is unique. Okay, so the mapping is well defined. So instead of writing these things, we just simply directly write that the mapping is well defined. So clearly sigma is well defined. And onto. Why is sigma onto? Because you see, all the images are, all the elements in S are appearing as images. You choose any element arbitrarily if the suffix of that element is within 1 and m, and that element is Si for that type of I, then the element from which Si is coming is Ti. And if my element is Sm, if my element is Sm, then I can choose I equal to m plus 1, anything greater than m. Since n is greater than m, you can choose Tn also. Tn will be mapped onto Sm. So every element in S is appearing as the image of some element in T under this mapping sigma. So it is onto. Okay, now we have to prove that, however, there is no onto function from S to T. Now suppose, so here again we are supposing the contrary, and we will try to arrive at a contradiction. So suppose there is an onto mapping eta or tau, also I could have taken tau from S to T. Okay, now here again we are going to use a result from tau, then by proposition it is that proposition from which we have already used results. It has some parts and it involves finite sets, and their number of elements are cardinality. So this is proposition 3.6. You have seen it before. D. This means that we are using part D of this proposition. By this, we have n is equal to, what is n? N is the number of elements in T, and that is equal to the number of elements in S tau, because since by our supposition tau maps S onto T. So T is equal to the image of S under tau. This image is entirely T. There is no portion of T is left uncovered by this image. It completely covers T. So here T is equal to S tau. However, now here I am going to write an inequality. This comes from this proposition. This is less than or equal to the number of elements in S, which is M. And you see that we have got a direct contradiction to our hypothesis. In the hypothesis it is given that M is strictly less than N. Here, however, we have got just not that thing. N is less than or equal to M, or M is greater than or equal to N. This contradicts the hypothesis M less than N. So our supposition is wrong. That is, we cannot have an onto mapping of S to T. Like this tau cannot exist. So S is less than T. If you are wondering, or if you have forgotten what this proposition says, it just says this. Suppose you have two finite sets A and B, and there is a function or a mapping from A to B. Then the number of elements in AF is less than or equal to the number of elements in A. You can think of it like this. This is your finite set A, this is your finite set B. There are some things here. Also we have some elements here. Now the mapping is mapping all the elements of A onto elements in B. Now the mapping may or may not be one-to-one. What happens when we have a one-to-one mapping? All the images are distinct. So you have as many images in B as you have elements in A. There is no collapse. In a many-to-one mapping, something like this can happen. Say I am mapping both these elements onto one element, and here I am mapping this element onto this element. So here, although I started with 3 elements, now I have 2 elements because there is a collapse. So in general, the set of images, which is this AF, is smaller than A in that sense, in this sense. That is, it has less number of elements than the domain. It becomes equal only when the mapping is one-to-one. Like for example, if I have a one-to-one mapping like this, then here I have started with 3 elements, I ended up with 3 elements again. So here the image set has the same size as the domain. Otherwise it will be smaller, but it can never be bigger, because in a mapping we cannot go like this from 1 element to 2 elements. we can come from two or more elements to one element. So that's why this inequality is always true, and we have used that inequality here. Okay, and we have got what we wanted. So here the solution ends, and this set of exercises also ends. Okay, so after this we will go back to ring theory. I think we have completed that section which involves field of quotients of integral domains. Now after this I believe we have Euclidean rings, so we will get to that, and once that is over I would like to go back to analysis, because it has been quite a long time we haven't done that, so I will do that. So with this I end this video. So if you are new here, please subscribe to my channel, A Mathematical Rule. So with that I am signing off. This is Lucifer. Have a nice night.